right, the first thing what we're going to do today is we're going to review some of the steps that we looked at yesterday. Again, this is when we do word problems. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to read and understand the problem. What is the problem essentially talking to us about? The second thing we're going to look at is we're going to define two variables. And in our examples yesterday, we did x and y. 3, we're going to write two equations. Again, we're working with cost and count. Yesterday, we dealt with one type of cost and count problem. Today, we're going to look at the next two. Number 4, we're going to solve the equations, either using graphing, substitution, or elimination. And yesterday, we talked a little bit about why we chose the different ways that we did. Number 5, we're going to label the answers. We're going to make sure that we have, is it number of books? Is it paperback? Is it number of large cards? Number of small cards? What is our label? And then we're going to make sure that we check back to see that we actually answered the question. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go back to the notes from yesterday. And if you look at the notes from yesterday, we worked with one type of cost and count problem. Again, we read the problem, we discussed, X and Y. It's number of small cards, number of large cards, not just small cards, large cards. We've got to make sure that we put the number of them. We came up with two equations, the cost of the equation, and then we did a count equation. So we did the count first, and then we did the cost. But again, it didn't matter which one we came up with. Then we went ahead and we solved the equation. We ended up with our answer, which in this instance was y equals 10, x equals 15. And then we had a label, which is 15 small cards, 10 large cards. And then we went ahead and made sure that we answered the question. How many of each type of card did the student sell? What we're going to do today is we're going to look at cost and count, but we're going to look at day 2. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read the question. And you can look at the steps. You should have had that in your notes from yesterday, so make sure that you look at that list as you're solving the problems. First of all, Val has $14.20 in nickels and pennies. She has 80 more nickels than pennies. How many of each coin does she have? So essentially what we're looking at is Val is a person, and she's got like this piggy bank, and she's got nickels and she's got pennies. And we want to know how many of each type does she have. Okay, so this is the second type of problem. These are the red problems. If you look at the homework sheet that I have for you, these are the red problems that you're going to be solving and setting up like this. Okay, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to define our variables. So I'm going to have x equals, and I'm going to have y equals. And what are we trying to find? We're trying to find out how many of each coin. And again, I've got nickels and I've got pennies. So I'm going to let x equal the number of nickels. And again, I have to put number of. I can't just put nickels. And then y is going to be number of pennies. In this instance, it's nickels and pennies. It could be quarters. It could be dimes. It kind of depends on the problem itself. Okay, so that's step 2. I defined my two variables. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come up with two equations. I'm going to work with cost or value, and that's what's really key is the value of the coins. And then I'm going to do count. And again, it doesn't matter which equation I do first. So first I'm going to look at the value. Now you're going to notice that there is one equation in this, or one problem in this equation that has, or number that has the dollar sign. In the past example, there were more, but in this example, there's only one. So what we need to do is we need to look at the actual value of the coin. So if I look at a nickel is worth 5 cents. Okay, so if I'm looking at a nickel, okay, that's going to be on a cash register 0.05. That's going to be the value of the coin. If I look at a penny, that's going to be 0.01 because it's 1 cent. And if I had that on a cash register, that's what would show up. If I had a dime, let's say I have other examples like a dime, A dime would be 0.10, which is 10 cents. A quarter on a cash register would read 0.25. So it kind of depends on what coin you're talking about. In our instance, in this problem, it's a nickel. So I'm going to do 0.05. That's the value of that. And then I'm going to put X, because again, the nickel is X. And then I'm going to add, it talks about a penny. So I'm going to do 0.01 Y, because again, we said that our pennies are Y. And I'm going to set them equal to the value of that they gave me, which is $14.20. So again, the number in front of the X or Y really depends upon the value of the coin that they're talking about. Now we're going to take a look at count. Now, if you remember from yesterday, we did X plus Y. It was always X plus Y, X plus Y. This is a little different, and so pay really close attention when we talk about this. Okay, you'll notice the next sentence says she has 80 more nickels than pennies. So think to yourself, what does she have more of? Does she have more nickels or does she have pennies? Well, in this instance, it says nickels. So nickels is what she has more of. So because she has more of the nickels, I'm going to go X equals. If it was more pennies, it would be Y equals. So whatever she has more of, that's the variable you put first. So notice it's nickels, which is your X, okay, and it's 80 more than, which means addition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go X equals, okay, and I'm going to go 80 plus, which is more than, and then my pennies, which is Y. Okay, so again, look at what you have more of. I have more nickels. You could underline it or circle it. Okay, that again is our X in the equation. So this is my X, so that's why it's an X equals. Okay, and then this is 80 more than, which is plus, and then of course pennies is my Y. Now you're going to notice that this is all set up for substitution. Okay, so this is just perfect for substitution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle what X equals. I'm going to circle the X in the problem, and I'm going to plug this in for X. So you're going to notice now, I'm going to use that substitution, 0.05. I'm going to take out X, and I'm going to put in what X equals. And then I'm going to write down the rest of the equation. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute. So 0.05 times 80 is 4 plus 0.05y plus 0.01y equals $14.20. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to combine like terms. So 4 plus 0.06y equals $14.20. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract my 4. 0.06y equals $10.20. Divide by 0.06, and y ends up giving me 170. Okay, which makes sense because if I'm talking about a penny or a nickel, I'm not going to have part of them. I'm not going to have a decimal of that. Again, I'm not talking about the value of it. I'm talking about how many that I have. Okay, so now that I solve for y, that's great, but I need to go ahead and I need to solve for x. So I'm going to come over to the side and I'm going to grab this equation. X equals 80 plus y. X equals 80 plus 170, and I end up with x equaling 250. Okay, so I solved. The next step, if you look at the steps on how to solve this, what I need to do is I need to label. So if I look at my x was nickels, so I end up with 250 nickels because I'm looking at how many that I have, not the value, and I have 170 pennies. And I go back up, take a look. How many of each coin does she have? I answered that question. I have 170 pennies and 250 nickels. Okay? All right. The next question that we're going to look at, and this is the blue problems. We're talking about cell phones, and we're talking about the better plan. So these are the other problems that you're going to see that you're going to need to solve today, and they're blue. It's still cost and count. It's just a little bit different setup. So the first thing we do, again, is to read the problem. A cell phone company has 2 phone plans. Plan A charges $126.75, which includes a flat fee and 75 texts. Plan B charges $127.55, which includes a flat fee and 91 texts. Find the flat fee and the cost per text. Okay, so you're going to notice that it's a little bit different. It's not necessarily cost and count. It's a little bit different type of setup on this problem. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go ahead and define my variables. I've got x equals and I have y equals, and if you take a look at the end of the problem, they're asking me to find the flat fee and the cost per text. So I'm going to let x equal the cost of the flat fee. And that's just the fee to be able to have this type of plan. End of story. Okay, it could be like $25 or $100 or whatever, just to be part of the calling plan. And then y is the cost per text. And these are some things that in real life that you really have to take a look at. Which plan is the best for you based on how many texts or how many calls that you make. Okay, so that is, I define my variables. The next one are my equations. Now the equation is different. It's not going to be cost and count. Okay, I'm not taking a look at how many. It's a little bit different. I'm talking about the cost of each of these things. So what I'm going to do is you're going to notice that I'm going to look at plan A. All right, so over here I'm going to write plan A. All right, and it says it charges $126.75, which includes the flat fee and 75 texts. So this is how we're going to set this up. I've got my flat fee plus, I'm going to go 75y. Okay, so 75 texts, and it's the cost per text, and that's going to give me $126.75. That's plan A. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up plan B. Okay? Plan B, which talks about it right here, charges $127.55 and includes a flat fee and 91 texts. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, okay, here's my flat fee. Cost per text, and I got 91 texts, and it gives me the total of $127.55. So those are my 2 equations. Notice it's plan A and plan B. I'm comparing the 2 plans. It's not cost and count, so it's a little bit different. And these are the types of problems that you're going to see on the bottom of the worksheet that I'm going to give you today. Okay? You'll notice that they're all planned up, are all set up for elimination. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab x plus 75y equals 126.75. X plus 91y equals 127.55. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract these. I don't have to multiply anything because you'll notice that my 2 x's, they do cancel. So these cancel. And if I subtract them, I end up with negative 16y equals negative 0.8. Divide by negative 16. And my answer ends up being 0.05. And you can go, wait a minute, is that right? Does that make sense? Well, it does, because again, if you notice y is the cost per text. And so I could have something be 0.05 or 5 cents per text. So this makes sense with the answer that I'm given. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I need to find y. So I'm going to grab one of those two equations. It really doesn't matter which. I'm going to grab the first one. So x plus 75y equals 126.75. Okay, I'm going to go x plus 75 times 0.05 equals 126.75. Okay, xe plus, I'm going to go ahead and multiply that. .75 times 0.05. I get 3.75. I'm going to subtract that then. And so x ends up giving me 123. So you'll notice that I've got two separate answers. Now I need to make sure that I know what I'm answering. So x, if you remember, is the cost for the flat fee. Okay? So it's going to be $123 for the flat fee. And I'm going to end up with 5 cents per text. Okay? Come back up, find the flat fee, and find the cost per text. Okay? And again, this is part 2 of the cost and count. You're going to notice that tomorrow we're going to go ahead and we're going to do perimeter. But right now we're going to stop right there. If we take a look at the assignment, again, what you need to do is you need to go into Schoology. We're going to go into our algebra course, go down into chapter 7. We're going to look at the worksheets and handouts. We're going to go all the way down to cost and count. Now your assignment that you were supposed to do for yesterday was 1 through 7. The first word problem that we did today covers 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay? And then the problem that we just got done with is 12, 13, and 14. So I've kind of color-coded each type of problem. If you have a problem, make sure that you message me. Let me know if there's something I can do. And we'll look at some of your answers tomorrow.